Hello, everyone. This is Bo Vogelai again. I'm doing our assignment in science class in EDCI 632 in two ways today. I have a paper version, and I'm also putting a video with it. This is something I'm also working on with some of my educational outreach, and in the process I'm in with furthering my career. So using it a little bit more and trying to implement it in more ways than one. Today we're going to talk about the difference between NGSS science standards and the state standards that we have in South Dakota. Currently, I teach sixth grade Earth and Space Science at Lee Deadwood Middle School. This is my second year doing that, fifth year in education, getting more and more practice, feeling some things out, and feel that I have some good things to share when it comes to science and what we're doing in education right now. First, I'm going to share with you some materials that I have. And for class, I'm going to submit these as well. So part of my lesson that's going to kind of tie some of these together is going to be how do we know the ground moves? And as you can see, I'm already laying out that the kids are going to be modeling through investigation. I think anytime we teach the next generation science standards to our students, we really want to make sure that we're giving them the opportunity to go and learn. We have to facilitate sometimes. We don't want science to be all direct instruction and vocabulary. And a good way to do that is hooking the students and engaging them right off the start. But I'm going to skip most of that for now and go down to some of the materials I have and do that first. Down here, I have some links that we're going to use for class and this video today. What's the wrong button? This first one has the science standards. And when looking at Earth systems, this is the site that I'm going to end up using, especially when talking about the structures down here that provide plate motions. As you can see, the Next Generation Science Standards has these as middle school, grades 6 through 8. And I use this one in my sixth grade classroom. One other thing that we're going to notice right away is that in our state standards for South Dakota, we also have them separated into the middle school format. Below on this document, I also have those included. Here are our state standards for science. A little bit different than the NGSS. As we go down and get into the middle school, physical science now in middle school in South Dakota, if you're following that format, it has been moved to 8th grade. Life sciences in 7th grade. Here's those standards. And then down here, we're going to be in Earth and Space, which we teach in 6th grade. I was led to believe by one of my supervisors that this was a good move because we wanted students to have success in science because of science. And we found that having physical science at grade 6, sometimes with traditional instruction, students were struggling because of not being where they needed to be with their mathematics. So I agree. I've found this to be a great age to teach. And in here is where we're going to develop models as common across the state standards. But we're going to be focusing on the plate tectonics and the motions and different patterns that they will follow in Earth's systems. So let me check out of this for a minute and we'll get back to some of the other things I have for us today. Down here, I have copied and pasted the 6th grade middle school standards for South Dakota. Some other things I have, thankfully I teach science, is I have found the 3 dimensions of NGSS very useful. They're science and engineering, disciplinary core ideas, and cross-cutting concepts. And I hope this video is displaying this little handheld I have for you here. When laid out like this is very teacher user-friendly, and students can use some of these things as well to get a better understanding of the things they're going to be working on. Here's a sample lesson plan for teaching waves that incorporate those things. Again, the disciplinary core ideas, science and engineering practices, and cross-cutting concepts can cross into different avenues and classes as well. What is one of the issues for not settling the way we maybe used to teach science. I have this article here by Katie Van Horn and Philip Bell, written in 2014 about why this stuff is important. And I found this article very useful. To kind of put it in a nutshell, it basically says that students need to be engaged and they need to be frequently investigating. One thing I like to tell my students, and I'm going to tie into my lesson plan here today that I show you, is that it's not fulfilling enough to have me stand in front of the class and deliver, and then them do. I want them to be lifelong learners and go figure out how to find this information, learn how to ask the right questions. They're going to fail. Then it's a time to go back and figure out how to create, model, investigate different sorts of ideas. Some of the things we talk about in cross-cutting concepts is tying to patterns and math, and often crossing into other subject areas. One that I do a lot in my earth space science class is we go back to the impact we end up having on our environment. Now I'm going to go back here to my assignment. Very basic stuff here, but I'm going to go through and explain it. The lesson is, how do we know the ground moves? Because it's important that the students understand what we are working on that day. One of the struggles that we have with next generation science standards and South Dakota is that we still have our state ones, but we're not really always evaluated on these new trends and practices that we know are beneficial. We have principals and supervisors and assistant principals that may not be up to date on the NGSS, and our evaluations don't always reflect that. But they are going to be able to tell if we're sitting in the power zone, if we're moving around and engaging and questioning and giving students the opportunity to learn. But anyways, a good way that the NGSS wants us to get these people hooked is through phenomena or problem-based learning. And all the students can see, how do we know the ground moves, and go, oh, and they're going to start asking questions. So that's the goal here. I also love I can statements. Your principals will love that in your classroom. If I can walk in to a classroom and they're going to say, I know, or I can model what happens on Earth's surface, that's going to go with this, how do we know the ground moves? Very well. Everybody's going to understand the objective for today. It's also important because of different things in the classroom, maybe different learning strengths or disabilities and those things, to make sure that students have stuff that is clear and in front of them. So anytime I can give them something student friendly like this that has their materials that they need, it can really benefit those students and maybe the paraprofessionals that need to help them to succeed. So basically in the assignment, these students are going to take these materials and they have some multiple options to develop a model that shows that they know that the Earth's crust is in plates and they're moving. How do they get the information to make these models? A couple different choices. That's where I'm going to scroll down here for a minute. Oh, went too far. Here's where I'm going to be looking at the science and engineering practices, and I'm going to really be focusing on this assignment. Sometimes in my classroom, I like to do investigation online. Kids have technology skills. Let's use them in the right way. But there are also times where I like to bring it a little bit more traditional. If you have those textbooks and curriculum available to you, lots of stuff on the Earth's surface and the patterns that are going to follow there. But what they're going to do and accomplish that's under the science and engineering practices is develop and using models. They have these materials. They're going to make their own. And in this assignment, I'm going to tie in technology because I'm going to also have them present it on video. That is a good way for them to assess themselves and take responsibility for their learning before it gets to me. Carrying out a plan, they might have to work in partners or groups of 3. And when they go through their steps, they're going to need to go through that and maybe make adjustments if something doesn't work. Constructing explanations. This is going to be part of the video piece. This is what's going to hold them accountable, because when they make this short video and present it to their class, they're going to need to be able to explain by what they're doing, even though they might do it this time visually. Lastly, obtaining and evaluating and communicating information. I'm using that in technology this time through recording and giving them the opportunity to show what they've learned. In the disciplinary core ideas, these are basically the standards. And here we're going to be talking about Earth history, which is a major part of my 6th grade Earth and Space Science class, and then also plate tectonics and the large scale system. We know enough about plate tectonics to understand that it is an ever moving thing, but they are going